The views are out of this world.
This thing is unbelievable. It sounds incredible.
Golly gee, everybody, look at that.
We're not quite on top of the world, but we are on top of the ACT. This is Mount Corrie, one of the tallest peaks in the Brindabella Ranges. It is absolutely stunning up here. And welcome to part 2 of our drive around the nation's capital. Now, this is a pretty important episode for us because we do have our reigning drive car of the year, the Ford Ranger here that we're taking on this episode. But let's not forget that this is the 50th episode of Drive TV. It's gone by in a flash. But here we are, episode number 50, and a fitting way to celebrate it right here in the ACT. This week, we've got more fantastic driving roads, some amazing local craftsmanship like we promised you last week, and of course, a little bit of off-road that you need to experience as well. This is our loop of the ACT, episode 50 of Drive TV. Let's get into it. Presumably, if you buy a dual cab like the Ford Ranger, you want to do exactly what we're doing now, which is some off-road driving. Now, this is a pretty easy track at this point, but it's going up quite steeply where we are up in the Brindabellas outside Canberra. So I've already put it across into low range. That's a really simple affair with something like a Ranger. You've got the dial down here and you just hit 4L while you're stationary and neutral. You can do it while you're rolling, but I prefer to do it when I'm stationary. Get it into 4 low and head off onto the 4-wheel drive obstacle. Now, off-road, obviously something like the Ranger Raptor is the pick of the Ranger suite of models because it's the most off-road focused, but the wild track that we're driving for this episode is still very capable. The first thing you're gonna do, if you've got any off-road driving planned, is fit all-terrain tyres as a minimum. Now, you can obviously go more aggressive in terms of off-road capability, but all-terrains are a lot easier to live with on the road day to day before you get to all the off-road driving that you're going to do. So this vehicle already has the optional all-terrains fitted. So that's one less thing for you to worry about. And you can do exactly the kind of off-road driving that we're doing now, absolutely effortlessly really, with what is effectively a showroom standard Ranger Wild Track. A lot of that has got to do with the capability and quality of the engine and the gearbox, the way that they work together, obviously the low range transfer case and the gearing of that. And then of course you've got the added benefit of a rear diff lock if you need it. But everything works together particularly well in terms of the drivetrain, the ground clearance, the gearing. The steering's excellent too when you're off-road. You're working your way around tight, slippery tracks. It's a very confidence-inspiring dual cab, this one, to drive off-road. And if you're coming to off-road driving as a novice, as plenty of people are these days, this is a really good way to start. Obviously, you need the budget to be able to afford one, but the Ranger is a particularly user-friendly dual cab off-road.
Boy walks south down on the broken track. Father said, my son, come on back.
Now, this track up here in the Brindabellas is a really engaging one to drive. It's not particularly difficult, but what I love about it is that you climb in altitude quite high quite quickly, so you get a really different perspective of the land around you. The views are obviously more impressive the higher you get, and that is why we love exploring these parts of the world. What I think is most impressive about this stunning part of the ACT for me is how close it is to Canberra. The proximity to the centre of the city is hard to believe if you're from a city like Sydney, Brisbane to a degree, or even Melbourne. This is around about an hour outside of Canberra, and you're completely out in the bush. Beautiful scenery, really, really pretty, and well worth the trip if you are doing this drive in a four-wheel drive. You don't have to do it. What we've done up to this point has all been on sealed roads. You don't have to be in a four-wheel drive, but if you do have one, if you are visiting Canberra, it would be a shame not to head out here into the Brindabellas, bring some lunch, bring provisions, water, take the day and really soak it up and enjoy it, because it is absolutely stunning out here. You can obviously see I'm standing in front of a shed, and I can promise you that what is going on in that shed is unbelievably interesting. You're absolutely going to love this. And if you're wondering why I'm breathing out so much steam, a little bit cold this morning in Canberra. It was -5 overnight, so we're looking for as much sun as we can find. Come with me though first. You're absolutely going to love this. We're with Kareem Haddad here at Tharwa Valley Forge. Kareem, first of all, thanks for taking the time to have a chat to us. Secondly, I just want to say, people ask me why I love doing Drive TV so much. This behind me, this, what you guys do, this is why I love doing it. Tell our viewers a little bit about what this facility is.
So this is the Tharwa Valley Forge,
Yep.
which is one of the largest bladesmithing schools in the world. And we teach people how to make stuff.
So one of the largest in the world, not just
Yes.
in Australia, just like half an hour outside Canberra, 40 minutes outside Canberra.
In Sleepy Tharwa.
In Sleepy Tharwa. And not only that, but the fact that you teach people, so you can enrol to come here and learn how to make these things that you're making here. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we find that people are very excited coming away for a weekend and
Yeah.
creating something with their hands. They can go away with an heirloom that they'll keep for 100 years.
Now, it's not just, knives are the most obvious thing, right? We'll get to that in a minute, because there's a lot of publicity around knives and people now understanding the craftsmanship that goes into a handmade knife. But you make other things here, like people can come to you and commission other things to be made.
So look, we do fire pits, we do sculptures, we do leather work, we do blacksmithing stuff.
Yep.
We make specialist tools.
Yep.
There's a whole bunch of things.
Now tell us a little bit about what you do, what the facility is, because you make things, obviously, you teach people how to make things, but you can come and stay here. There's a pizza oven
course.
over there. We're on a very historic property here as well,
Yeah,
right?
so we work out of the Cupper property,
Yep.
which is based in Tharwa, and it was first settled about 200 years ago. It's got a beautiful old homestead there and a cottage that people can stay. And part of the reason we expanded into here was that we found that people were coming from all over Australia to do a program,
Yep.
and they were trying to stay in town, which is a bit far
Sure.
out.
Yeah, sure.
And to be able to wake up in the morning and walk 50 metres into the workshop, or stagger at the end of the day back in and have a hot shower
Yeah.
and sit by the fire and do
Sure.
that kind of thing, that'd be awesome.
Becomes more like a weekend away.
It is, and it's experience.
Now, I've noticed something over there. It's just out of shot. It looks like an urban assault vehicle, like the kind of thing you'd jump in if the world was coming to an end. You did mention a little bit about an outreach program. What do you use that vehicle for?
Look, we've got a wonderful big Hino 4x4
Yep.
with a custom-built trailer on the back, and we found that lots of people really wanted to do courses with us but couldn't get here.
Right.
And so we developed this as a way of reaching out into the community and do stuff. We've done programs, people have been affected by bushfires, with floods, that are in rural and remote areas that can't get here to make stuff happen.
Yep.
So we've got a fully self-sufficient truck with generators and solar panels and forges and anvils and grinders, and we just pop up. We can do it on a school oval, we can do it in a car park.
Wow.
We did it at the edge of the beach down in Bermagui last month.
Now, I think this is most important. We're going to go and take a look. You're going to show us around some of the work. But most importantly, there's going to be people watching this who are fascinated, like I am. How do you find out about what you do? How do you enrol in courses? How do you order or put an order or buy a product? What do you do?
Just go straight to our website,
Yep.
tharwavalleyforge.com, and have a look, and it's all on there. Or shoot me an email, ring me up,
Yep.
or just drop in and say hello.
This is absolutely sensational, guys. Make sure the next time that you get to the nation's capital, you make your way out here to Tharwa. Adam, what you've got in your hand there, obviously you should be proud of it because you made it. There's design, there's manufacturing, there's engineering, there's a little bit of everything in that. Tell us a little bit about this knife.
Okay, so this is a steampunk fantasy knife made up of as many recycled materials as I can.
Yep.
So this knife contains parts from power points, gas bottle valves, gas bottle gauges, a garage door, watch parts, clock parts.
Some beautiful timber there too. I
Yeah,
can
part
see
of
as
a
well.
cordless drill. The
Yep.
timber is Tasmanian blackwood.
Yep. Can you estimate how many hours have gone into that?
No, but I've been working on it pretty constantly for about 3 months.
Wow. And this was done in your spare time, right?
Yeah, in spare time, which I don't have much of. I tend to get obsessed by things like this. Once I start, I can't stop. And
Until you
so
finish it.
I've been literally waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and going working on it.
Now, I think you said this is going to be at the Sydney Knife Show, is that
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
if you want to take a look at this knife, you need to get there, because I suspect it'll be out of public view not long after, mate. Someone's going to buy it
we'll
and
see
it'll
how
be...
we go, yeah.
Take a look at it. This is unbelievable. Now, the argument remains that plenty of people buy a dual cab when they don't really need one. I get that, I understand it, and those of you who don't like them, fair enough, they're not for you. But dual cabs are extremely practical and they're extremely user-friendly for the right buyer, and that's why so many Australians are buying them at the moment. And they really do work well for an Australian lifestyle. If you live in town, but you do want to get out here and do some touring, this is a practical vehicle for you to do that with. Whether you've got 2 kids or whether there's 4 adults in the car, doesn't matter. This will practically get out there in the country and do some touring. Doesn't matter if you come across some dirt roads or some 4-wheel driving, Ranger will be fine with that as well. 3/4 of an hour or 45 kilometres outside Canberra, you'll find a small-scale alpaca farm, Boston Fine Fibres, where a couple with a working history that was anything but farming related have started up a thriving business. It's not just a farm either. Boston Fine Fibres is also able to process the wool from its alpacas thanks to a custom-made mill. That wool is then turned into some of the finest handmade beanies, jumpers and scarves that you'll find anywhere. We're visiting Jim and Tanya Boston from Boston Fine Fibres. Jim, before we get started, I often say best day at work ever. This is a pretty lovely part of the world out here. People talk about retirement being relaxing. Yeah. In your case and in Tanya's case, retirement, I suspect, is working harder and longer than when you were working normally.
Yeah, harder and longer, but far more enjoyable.
Right.
Because, this is our product. We like what we're doing. We love what we're doing. And so, what's there not to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, on the product, there's some beautiful alpacas down there in the back paddock. I've got an alpaca beanie on, which you have kindly given me. Thankfully, it's nice and cold out here today. I'll get to the finished product in a minute. They're beautiful animals. They've got such a gentle nature to them as well. But tell us a little bit about the process of the farming, how you came to have alpacas, and what it looks like day to day for you guys.
We started off with kids and horses, and then they left, and so we moved into sheep and goats, and they were a lot of hard work. You've got to drench them, you've got to shear them, And we've got a couple of guard animals, and all of a sudden we go, these alpacas are pretty easy to look after.
So the alpacas were guard animals for you to start with?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And then we got rid of the sheep and goats, and we just got more alpacas, mainly because you only have to shear them once every 12 months. They're far more easy to handle, and they're just great animals to have, personable.
Now, exactly, personable is how I'd describe it. Now, you've got quite an intricate mill in there that we're going to take a look at the moment. There aren't a lot of farmers, in inverted commas, that then also work with the product as well. So you've started that from scratch as well because it was difficult to get the product milled. Is that why you started?
Yeah, so we ended up having bales of fleece.
Right.
And we asked around, what are you going to do with it? And they said, well, you can take it to the tip, or, it's a crime.
It is.
And so we thought, let's just do something. So we reached into our pocket, bought a mill.
I'm one of those people, and I referenced the beanie before. It was -5 this morning in Canberra, so
it was -7 here.
You had a beanie on when we got here as well. I'm one of those people, if I put a lamb's wool or sheep's wool beanie on, or anything on my skin, I'll be scratching and going crazy. I've had this on now for about an hour.
Yep.
I'm not itchy. Why is that?
So sheep has got a great attribute where it's got little tiny barbs in the fleece where it hooks together.
Right.
That's a great attribute for spinning it, but it's a bad thing onto your skin. And so people get allergic to it and scratches up. Where alpaca doesn't have that. It just has crimp and the amplitude of crimp, and that's how we can spin it. So it's quite smooth against the body.
It feels a lot softer. So I suppose for things like a beanie where it's in direct contact with your skin, it makes a real difference, doesn't it?
It does. So say a 20 micron or 15 micron, which is really top-end lamb's wool, an alpaca of the same micron will feel much, much softer, only because it's not that harsh crimp.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's
now,
softer.
Boston Fine Fibres it is, guys. Check it out. In the meantime, we're going to go in and have a look at the mill.
Fantastic. Let's do it.
They said love hurts. I wrote that book. I climbed that wall. I had one look, but you just came around to say hello. The streets were filled.
We find ourselves saying this often, and I know we do repeat ourselves a little bit, but one of the reasons we love coming back to the ACT is it is seriously underrated as a driving destination. A lot of people know about Canberra Centre or Queanbeyan or some of the towns close to Canberra, but what a lot of people don't realise is the interesting small towns that are 30, 40 minutes or an hour away from Canberra Centre. And consequently, that means that you've got a really enjoyable drive from Canberra to any of these country towns. Now, the added bonus of that, and the reason we love coming back here, is the quality of the driving roads. You could be driving around in a large four-wheel drive or a dual cab like I am now, or you could be in a small sports car. It doesn't really matter. These roads are fantastic. So I urge all of you who are watching this now to sit down with a map and work out what it is that you'd like to see as you skirt around the ACT, and then get down here and do some driving. One of the great benefits is that within 30 or 40 minutes of leaving the centre of town, you can be out here in the country like we are now. We're out somewhere in Sydney or Melbourne would take you well over an hour to get to a place like this. Sydney, probably more than 2 hours. But in Canberra, 20, 30, 40 minutes maximum, you're out in the country on an enjoyable driving road, not just having a fun drive, which is a big part of what we do here. The name of the show is Drive TV. You're not just having a fun drive. What you're also doing is heading off to a really interesting little country town with a fantastic history and a story to tell. You can spend some time there, have some fun, and then head back to the centre of Canberra for your accommodation. From the top of Mount Corrie on the New South Wales ACT border, we made our way down Two Sticks Road before turning left onto Brindabella Road. Follow Brindabella Road into the town of Corrie as you head right out of town and in a southerly direction to Cotter Campground and onto Tidbinbilla Road, which runs all the way into the Tharwa Valley. Heading back into town for the night, leave town and skirt around the airport. The Kings Highway runs right into the town of Bungendore, where you will turn right but remain on the Kings Highway all the way into Braidwood. Beautiful Braidwood in New South Wales. We're making our way back to the Sydney HQ of Drive. This is the end of this episode of Drive TV, and to be quite honest with you, we haven't had enough time to explore Braidwood, so we may have to come back here and have another look, have a closer look, and sample some of the history and the amazing driving roads around this area, particularly focusing in off-road, because there's plenty of good off-road driving here. Now, don't forget, as always, everything that we have on the Ford Ranger that we've driven this episode, that's over at drive.com.au, as well as where we've driven and the places we've visited. But the ACT is a fantastic place. I'm going to say it one more time here. You need to get down there and do some exploring and do some driving, because it is a fantastic part of the country. And this, of course, is the 50th episode of Drive TV. It brings us to the end of this season of Drive TV as well. So thank you as always for joining us. We appreciate your support, and we will see you again next season for another great drive.